So, Donald Trump on the White House lawn, waiting to go down to Florida this morning, said that he would like China to look into Joe Biden's son. And that's going to pose a potential problem for him, not because it shouldn't be done, but because he doesn't have the authority to have it done. And he's stating it as he's in the middle of a trade war with China. And it could be assumed that the trade war with China could hinge upon the review of what Joe Biden's done. Now, that's not a process that's normal for the president to involve himself in. Number one, there are certain rules and parameters that allow the family of the first lady and so on and so forth to be protected. So if you are the president or the vice president, when you leave the office, you have protections for your family. And when you say something like, please investigate him, it becomes a threat against that family. And Joe Biden's son is related to Joe Biden, which was the vice president of the United States of America. And Barack Obama reaffirmed the law that was dropped during the Bush legacy, George Bush Jr., about having protection during the lifetime after they get out of the presidency. So, that being said, if Joe Biden says that Donald Trump is threatening his son and feels like his son is under duress because of that, this could turn into a whole different investigation. Now, I'd like to remind you that when the Democrats, because they will now be able to have the availability to go and do a formal investigation into him, when the Democrats ask for certain things like what did the grand jury say for Bob Mueller and what did his taxes have, and if they say, well, we need to see his Deutsche Bank because Deutsche Bank's in relationship to Ukraine, and we need to see if he was getting any money from Ukraine. And if they say all this stuff, they don't have to put it on the basis of anything any longer. They can just put it on Ukraine and see if there's a quid pro quo. And the reason for that isn't because Donald Trump said that he was working with Ukraine, but because Rudy Giuliani has been over in the Ukrainian area for a long time, all the way back to Poroshenko. And Rudy Giuliani met with Paul Manafort recently, and Paul Manafort comes from the Ukraine. So when they investigate the Ukraine, they can feel out whether or not that was done appropriately. Now, this is where it gets really important here. Then they can ask Bill Barr for the actual release of the report of the investigation upon Joe Biden's son, of which he won't have, because he doesn't have an official Department of Justice report on this, because this isn't an official Department of Justice investigation. It's a witch hunt being done by our president against Joe Biden's son. So Bill Barr won't be able to come forward with what they need to show that there was an actual investigation going on with the purview that it was a investigation in order to look into a criminal matter, because the Department of Justice's standpoint is that during an active investigation through the Attorney General, which is going on at this time, I believe Horowitz is currently investigating what went on over there. It is inopportune for the Department of Justice to overstep the IG of the Department of Justice and commit themselves to their own investigation. It's actually against the rules of conduct, and it correlates with the efficacy. Then as an American person, you got to ask yourself, if Donald Trump has raised $300 million for his campaign, how much American money has been used going back and forth for all of this investigation? Has Giuliani's airplane tickets been paid for by the United States of America? Has all this stuff been being paid for? Did the Genoveses from Fox News go over there and get paid for by Donald Trump? And when we start looking at people like Gorka, what did Gorka have? Everyone knows Gorka's a spy. Everyone knows that Gorka stole a bunch of information and brought it forward and gave it to the campaign. But what did Gorka do in the Ukrainian area? And when you start looking at these things here, you have to admit that Vladimir Putin had it absolutely right when he laughed yesterday and did the Whisper event. He's right. It's hilarious that the United States of America would completely destroy itself over what Donald Trump says. Donald Trump's never been known to tell the truth. Donald Trump's been under more investigations than, I don't know. I mean, who do you compare him to? But he's the president. So when he comes out and says stuff like that, you have to take him with a certain sort of dignity. You have to say, well, that's my president. And if I want to retaliate on somebody, I can. And if I want to call somebody names, I can. If I want to punch somebody in public, I can. And if I want to shoot somebody in public, I can. And if I want to support this group, I can. If I want to talk about Hispanic people, I can. And if I want to shoot people in the legs that are coming at the border, I can. Because the leadership of our country has enabled us to get rid of the norms and values that are consequential to the concept of not only the bylaws of our country, but the standards of our country and the efficacy of what we believe in as good God-fearing people. And no matter how you come to religion, in all books of religion, they said that a person would rise from the sea of faces just like this. And he is risen from the sea of faces. He is of us. He's what we laugh at when we turn on our televisions at night. He is what we find funny. He uses words like we do in private places. He is just like the majority of us. And if you are not like us, then that's good on you. You must be a better angel. God bless God for Donald Trump, because only he could do this. And we must pray for him that he gets it done in the fullest, because in the ball of it all, this is mere excrement.